Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's top stories. As voting stations are closing, results for the Super Tuesday elections are coming in. We'll take a look at some of the key races. A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers introduced a legislation today that would give China's Bytedance about 6 months to divest the popular short video app TikTok or face a U.S. ban. After becoming the first city in the U.S. to recognize the legal rights of non-human animals, Ojai, California now bans the sale and use of glue traps, which are primarily used to trap and kill rodents. Super Tuesday is here, the biggest day nationwide for primary elections and caucuses, before the final contest in November. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg leads us off tonight on what to expect from this crucial date on the election calendar.
15 states and 1 territory, 865 delegates to be won for Republicans, and over 1,400 for Democrats. That's what's at stake on Super Tuesday. Historically, Super Tuesday has been a barometer to measure the nation's opinion on each of the candidates. This year, President Biden and former President Trump are clear favorites. Trump already has 273 delegates, compared to former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley's 43. Biden has 206. A March 2nd poll from Siena College and the New York Times showed Trump well ahead of Haley, 77% to 20% among registered Republicans. An aggregate of polls from Real Clear Politics also shows the former president is leading Haley by 79% to 15%. But Haley seems undeterred by the numbers and calls for her to drop out. Just on Monday, she was in Texas rallying supporters.
Courage for me to run, and courage for every one of you to know. Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't play in this primary. It matters. It matters.
I am so proud of her staying in the race after all of these defeats.
I thought she was great. I think she is the only one who can win the general election.
Meanwhile, Trump picked up another win on Monday, this time in the North Dakota caucuses. While Super Tuesday may not throw up many surprises as far as each party's presidential nominee is concerned, it could indicate what to expect come November. Biden may have the backing of the Democratic establishment, but he's losing support among some progressives, as well as some Muslim Americans. After facing a record uncommitted vote in the swing state of Michigan, Biden has seen another such movement in Minnesota. The Abandon Biden movement said there would be further protests against the president with the aim of stopping the Israel-Hamas war. The organizers expect at least 10,000 uncommitted votes in the state's Democratic primary.
He'll still be the nominee the way it looks like now, so there's no risk to them that somehow he's not. But it is a protest vote because we want as many people to come out and say to President Biden that we're uncommitted because of his policy on Gaza.
Another Times Siena poll from late February indicated that Trump is currently beating Biden in terms of popularity. Democratic voters were found to be much less enthusiastic about Biden when compared to Republicans and Trump. The national survey showed that if an election were held today, Trump would come out ahead of Biden. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
For live updates on the primary presidential election, please visit ntd.com to watch our Super Tuesday special coverage. Now let's take a look at other top headlines. Although all eyes are on the presidential candidates as ballot counts are coming in, there are also lots of other key Senate, House, and gubernatorial contests across various states. In California, candidates will vie for an open Senate seat left after the Senator Dianne Feinstein's exit. But the primaries for the House in the state where Republicans are defending a razor-thin majority are by far the most important for the balance of power in Washington. Democrats need a net gain of 4 seats to flip the House, and in California alone, the party is targeting 7 GOP-held seats. In Texas, a showdown is brewing in the Democratic primary over who will challenge Senator Ted Cruz. Cruz won by just 3 points in 2018, which leads some to believe tides could be shifting in the Lone Star State. In the same state, House Speaker Dade Phelan faces challenges after his involvement in the impeachment effort against the state attorney general Ken Paxton. The race for governor in North Carolina has caught people's attention. With term-limited Democratic Governor Roy Cooper on his way out, all eyes are on who will win his chair. Alabama's GOP primary features incumbent Congress members Jerry Carl and Barry Moore in the 1st District. They're now in the same district after the court-ordered redistricting. California Congressman David Valadao is one of the only two left in Congress who voted to impeach Trump. He faces potential challenges in a primary for the 22nd District. And North Carolina's Attorney General primary sees House Freedom Caucus member Representative Dan Bishop facing off against Representative Jeff Jackson running for the open seat. The Supreme Court has temporarily frozen enforcement of the controversial immigration law in Texas until at least next week. The decision comes after the Biden administration filed an emergency application with the High Court to try to block the law from taking effect. Texas Senate Bill 4 was signed into law in December by Governor Greg Abbott. It allows the state law enforcement to arrest and detain people they suspect of entering the country illegally. It would also let state judges order people to leave the country, with prison sentences up to 20 years for those who refuse to comply. Abbott and other state officials blame President Biden for a record increase in illegal immigration. After the High Court issued its order, Abbott posted a video on X showing new border wall constructing on their way, writing, "We'll use every tool and a strategy to secure our border until President Biden fulfills his constitutional duty to enforce federal immigration laws already on the books." Immigration advocates have criticized the law, citing their fears of increased racial profiling in Texas, where Latinos represent 40% of the population. The Supreme Court's temporary pause will hold until March 13th instead of the law going into effect on March 10th. This break now gives the court additional time to review the case. Social media app TikTok in the crosshairs of the U.S. lawmakers once again. A bipartisan group of legislators is looking to force TikTok parent Bytedance to divest the popular short video app. If the Chinese company fails to do so, TikTok will face a U.S. ban. Representatives Mike Gallagher and Raji Krishnamurthy introduced the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. The bill would give Bytedance 165 days to sell off the social media app that is used by more than 170 million Americans. The bill says TikTok is controlled by a foreign adversary and poses a threat to U.S. national security. In a press conference, Gallagher gave TikTok an ultimatum: break up with the Chinese Communist Party or lose access to American users. The bill marks the first significant legislative movement toward banning or forcing Bytedance to divest the app in nearly a year, and could pose a significant threat to Bytedance's ownership of TikTok. Last year, Senate legislation to ban the popular app installed in Congress because of heavy lobbying by TikTok. This new bill is expected to be taken up at an Energy and Commerce Committee hearing Thursday for a potential vote. The bill would give the president new powers to be able to classify certain apps as potential threats to national security. If an app is deemed to pose such risks, the bill would empower the president to impose bans or restrictions on its usage. Still, the app is very popular, and getting legislation approved in an election year may be difficult. Last month, Democratic President Joe Biden's re-election campaign joined TikTok. A California city became the second in the nation to ban the use of glue traps. During a city council meeting, supporters of the ban spoke of cruel and inhumane suffering of the animals that got stuck on them. NTD's Jason Blair reports.
Joining West Hollywood, Ojai, California becomes the second U.S. city to ban glue traps.
They're just these horrible, indiscriminate killing devices.
Glue traps are small boards coated with adhesive. They're placed on the ground or other surfaces, usually intended to catch rodents who wander over them.
People now take these glue traps and put them on their cars because the rodents are hitting the cars. So the other little animals come, they get in it, and it's a mess.
They are responsible for more suffering than any other commercially available wildlife control product.
During the meeting, there was no voiced opposition. However, one person asked if banning glue traps would push people to worse options. The council voted unanimously to pass the ban, which goes into effect within 30 days.
I've heard about hummingbirds getting stuck. It is so unbelievably cruel and barbaric that there's just no reason to continue selling them.
The CDC already warns against using glue traps, saying, quote, "These traps can scare the rodents, causing them to urinate, which can increase your chance of getting sick." In September 2023, Ojai also became the first U.S. city to grant elephants the right to bodily liberty. Jason Blair, NTD News.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. Californians are voting today on a statewide ballot measure to tackle homelessness. If approved, it will be the first major update to the state's mental health system in 20 years. In the wake of last year's deadly incident, Miami officials now say the city will implement curfews, back checks, expensive parking fees, and DUI checkpoints to increase safety measures during this year's spring break. The Denver Broncos have officially made a decision to release quarterback Russel just 2 seasons after trade. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. California's governor is pushing for a ballot measure for mental health. If passed, it would reallocate taxpayer money to its programs, but critics argue it would threaten existing programs that are tackling the homeless crisis.
Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday campaigned for a statewide ballot measure that he touts as a major step to tackle homelessness. It would be the first major update to the state's mental health system in 20 years.
What Proposition 1 does is it advances the resources to address the number one issue, the most vexing issue of all, and that's the issue of housing. We need to stabilize people. We need to deal with the underlying reasons they're out on the streets and sidewalks in the first place.
Newsom says Proposition 1 would boost investments in housing and substance use programs, but social providers worry it would threaten programs that are keeping people from becoming homeless in the first place.
What it does to us in Orange County, and it totally changes our system that has been quite successful, because the way money is now allocated to the same source is not going through different buckets, can no longer be used for many of our programs.
Newsom wants to give the state more control over how that money is spent, but critics say it would apply one formula to all counties, regardless of the size of the local homeless population, and could pit programs for children against those for homeless people.
We lose control. More of the old funding will now go to Sacramento for their use, and they'll direct programs, and we'll lose flexibility. We like to be flexible and be able to adjust as needed. We do the point-in-time count. It's more than just counting heads. It's assessing the needs of the people we find out on the street.
The measure on Tuesday's ballot would restrict how counties use money from a voter-approved tax enacted in 2004 on millionaires. Revenue from the tax, now between $2 billion and $3 billion a year, provides about 1/3 of the state's total mental health budget. Counties would be required to spend about 2/3 of those funds on housing and programs for homeless people with serious mental illnesses or substance abuse problems.
Proposition 1 is the answer to the resources we need to increase our capacity and to make sure that we don't leave anyone on the streets who we know clearly are suffering from a mental health breakdown or any other issues that exist in this mental health care field.
Last year, a 61-year-old man was suspected of stabbing a bakery employee in San Francisco's Chinatown. His attorney claims he has significant mental health issues and was, quote, unaware of his actions on the day of the incident. Previously, he stabbed an elderly man in Portsmouth Square in 2016, but was released on parole in December 2022. Proposition 1 would also authorize the state to borrow $6.38 billion to build over 4,000 housing units, half of which would be reserved for veterans, and add 6,800 mental health and addiction treatment beds. Newsom has raised more than $13 million to promote the initiative, far outpacing the opponents who raised $1,000. Homelessness has become one of the most frustrating issues in California. The state accounts for nearly 1/3 of the homeless population in the U.S. Newsom's administration has already spent at least $22 billion on various programs to address the crisis, including $3.5 billion to convert rundown motels into homeless housing. California is also giving out $2 billion in grants to build more treatment facilities.
With spring break around the corner, many people will be flocking to the Sunshine State. However, there are new rules put in place to keep the community safer during one of the busiest times of the year. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the story.
Governor Ron DeSantis outlined his plans for stricter rules for tourists visiting Miami beaches at a press conference on Tuesday. This comes a year after Miami Beach declared a state of emergency following 2 fatal shootings during spring break. It was the 3rd year in a row that Miami Beach had to enact emergency measures to control disorderly crowds.
And we now have a total of 17 law enforcement agencies throughout the state of Florida that have requested at least 140 troopers to be deployed in their counties and cities to assist with maintaining order during spring break.
Over 60 state troopers will reinforce communities across South Florida, with an additional 60 deployed to spring break destinations like Daytona Beach and Panama City Beach. The city also activated State Highway Patrol aviation drones and mobile command vehicles to assist with traffic management and logistics.
And on top of that, FHP troopers will be utilizing Miami Beach Police mobile automated license plate readers throughout the city. This will help identify subjects with outstanding warrants or those that are driving stolen vehicles.
The city of Miami Beach sent out a strong message to spring breakers this month by posting on their website, "We're breaking up with you." The website highlights a list of new laws and regulations for the city.
Here in Miami Beach, a lot of our folks will be focusing on things like traffic mitigation, crowd control. There'll be barricades, there'll be DUI checkpoints, of course, parking and lane closures as appropriate. To ensure the safety of the surrounding communities, there will also be increased security for residential neighborhoods.
The city is also implementing a variety of measures ranging from curfews to bag checks to beach access points and targeted beach hours to ensure law and order. Uniformed officers will patrol by vehicles, ATVs, bicycles, and on foot.
What we don't welcome is criminal activity. What we don't welcome is mayhem and people that want to wreak havoc on our communities. If you're committing crimes, causing havoc, you are going to pay the price. And we will hold you accountable.
Miami Beach's 2023 spring break saw 488 arrests, including over 230 felonies and the seizure of more than 100 firearms. The laws are currently in effect. Christina Corona, NTD News.
The first over-the-counter birth control pill will hit the shelves in U.S. stores, allowing American women and teenagers to acquire contraceptive medication with the same ease as purchasing aspirin. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
Manufacturer Perrigo announced it has initiated the distribution of O-Pill to major retailers and pharmacies on Monday. It is expected to hit store shelves nationwide around the end of the month or early April. The suggested retail price for a 1-month supply is approximately $20, while a 3-month supply will be priced at around $50. It will also be available for purchase online. Perrigo stated that there will be no age restrictions on sale, mirroring the regulations for other over-the-counter medications. O-Pill belongs to an older class of contraceptives, referred to as mini pills, containing a single synthetic hormone, progestin. These pills generally have fewer side effects compared to the more popular combination, estrogen and progestin pills. According to Free the Pill, an advocacy group, over-the-counter options are already available in more than 100 countries. The launch of O-Pill provides American women with an additional birth control choice amidst the ongoing legal and political conflicts surrounding reproductive health. This includes the recent reversal of Roe v. Wade, which largely legalized abortion in the United States since 1973. Over-the-counter medications typically aren't covered by insurance. Christina Corona, NTD News.
On to sports, 2 big moves for 2 teams in different leagues. Here's Tyler Castillo with more.
The Denver Broncos announced they have released quarterback Russell Wilson. The Broncos went 11-19 with Wilson as quarterback for the past 2 seasons. The Broncos will also eat $85 million in dead cap, which is the largest in NFL history. In addition to the dead cap, it was financially motivated to bench Wilson in the final few games to prevent the next season's payout to the quarterback. Russell Wilson won the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks back in 2014. And in 2022, he was part of a blockbuster deal to the Denver Broncos. Looking back at this deal, it's apparent that the Broncos overpaid for the quarterback, as they sent 5 draft picks, with 2 of them being first-rounders, 3 players, and then signed him to a 5-year deal. The deal did not work out as the first season went 4-11, missing the playoffs, with the second season ending with Jarrett Stidham taking over as quarterback. The New Jersey Devils have fired head coach Lindy Ruff, naming Travis Green as interim head coach. The Devils are currently 6th in the Metropolitan Division with a 30-27-4 record. Last season, the Devils were 2nd in the division and made it to the second round of the playoffs. At this current pace of the season, the Devils are not expected to make the playoffs. This came after they made some deals to further bolster their lineup, such as trading for the Sharks' Timo Meier. This season has been underwhelming for fans, as the Devils has also been struggling with the power play. All of these combined have been factors to move on from the Devils coach, as Devils fans hope they can still make the playoffs this year and potentially reach the Stanley Cup.
Stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. And in more China news, Beijing boosting military spending by over 7%. And what's the regime leadership's latest hint on Taiwan? Tune in at 9:30 p.m. on NTD's China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer. And that's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.